Hey guys, welcome back to the Property Sourcing Success podcast. I am recording this in the middle of what can only be described as organised chaos. This week has been hectic, properly hectic, and throw in feeling under the weather for good measure. And it's been mad. Now, it's not hectic for no reason. It's actually hectic because we have over 50 of our Figure Sourcing Mastermind mentee clients flying into Belfast over the weekend. We've got guys coming in from across Scotland. We've got guys coming in from across towns and cities in England. And then we've got obviously our guys based locally here in Ireland. So we've actually more than 50 guys getting together, and they're coming in on planes, trains, automobiles. People are rearranging work, childcare commitments, family commitments. They're booking hotels. People are showing up this weekend, and they're showing up in Belfast like we do every single 90 days with the guys inside the mastermind. But I wanted to record this episode right in the middle of it, because I literally am right in the thick of the event preparation, preparing a really, really impactful keynote training that I'm going to give them over the weekend. But I wanted to record today's podcast episode in the thick of all the madness because there's something I think is really important to talk about. Most people will only ever see the highlight reel of all this online. You know, they'll see the photos, they'll see the selfies and the tags and the stories, and they get to see the room, and, they get to see the big group shot, and they get to see all the smiles and the hugs and the, oh my God, it was amazing, and the high fives, and all of that is true. But what they don't see, and this is important, is the level of detail that goes into creating an event that actually changes somebody. The level of intricate planning and detail and minute detail that goes into an event like ours that actually changes somebody's thought pattern, changes their motivation levels, changes their discipline, changes their consistency, changes their reason why. And I'm not using changes as, airy-fairy shite, like, oh, I feel motivated for 5 minutes to do some breath work. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, changes somebody in the respect that they go home a different person, that they're making different decisions, that they act differently, they move differently, and overall they're operating at a higher standard. And that's really what I want to talk about on today's, relatively short episode of the podcast. Because, in the thick of all this, while I've been very much in my zone, this week has really reminded me of something. Your results are built in the quiet parts that nobody actually claps for. And I know that all too well. People will certainly stand by in the sidelines and lurk in the distance in quiet corners, and wait for the inevitable demise, and I told you so. But the real success and the results are built in silence. So I want to take you behind the scenes for a minute. When people hear in-person event, they assume you book a venue, you show up, you put out a bit of nice branding, you maybe do a wee bit of teaching, you take a couple of photos, you make sure all those photos are posted online, done, we go home. No, that is not like the in-person mastermind event days that we do here for our Figure Sourcing mentee clients. And you ask any of them and they will tell you that. The in-person events that we run, and we run them quarterly, they are engineered within an inch of their life. They are designed. It is highly structured. Every single part of it has a purpose. There is no filler, no fluff, no, we'll just try and bookend this in because it'll fill up a bit of time. And to be perfectly honest, the level of detail that we go into is absolutely insane. It's also exhausting to prepare in the run-up to it. We have our run sheets. We take our agenda timings, the room layout, the table layout, specifically down to who we sit at each table, because I want to make sure that everybody at every table sits beside somebody that they can learn from, and in addition, that other person can learn something back from them. I don't sit all the high achievers together at a table. I don't sit all the people who are relatively new to it all at a table together. I don't sit the intermediates at a table together. This is not the canteen, when you were at school. This is the level of detail that we go into is excruciating. And, Is the lighting okay? Is the sound okay? Are we pacing the day okay? It's knowing, when does this room need a bit of a push for energy? When does the room need to take a bit of a pause and a reflection on what we've just covered? It's making sure that the teaching and the coaching and the content that I deliver on the day hits the spot. It has to hit the spot. It's thinking about the people in the room. Where are they at? What stage are they at? What do they need to hear? What are they thinking right now? What are they avoiding? What, excuses are they making? And then I have to build an environment around that where they cannot hide. And that is the truth. The whole point of getting people in a room in person is proximity. Proximity, because that creates standards. It creates a heightened, level of responsibility and accountability. It creates momentum. And, if you've ever experienced it, if you've ever been part of a high-level mastermind, I don't mean an academy where you go and there's 300 people in a room in one day. That's just a rally. But if you've ever been part of a high-level mastermind, then you'll get it. But if you've never experienced it, you'll not understand what I mean. But when you're in a room with people who are moving, when you are sitting beside someone who's just onboarded their next investor, or somebody who's just packaged and sourced a deal and collected the funds in the bank, or somebody who has just come off the back of successfully raising private finance, or somebody who, has been where you are but is now 2 and 3 steps ahead, or added another property to their portfolio, or got their first property in their portfolio, it does something to you because it forces you to stop telling yourself little fairy tales. It forces you to stop pretending that you don't know what to do. It also forces you to take responsibility. And that is exactly what these events are for. But the part that most people don't see is the experience that the people have on the day is created long before they ever actually step into the room. That's what myself and the team have been knee deep in doing for the last week. The experience that our guys will have, it's created in the planning that we've put in. It's created in the structure, in the agenda. It's created in the detail, fine detail that I've put aside. So this week, behind the scenes, we've been absolutely knee-deep in that. Myself, head of operations, it's been busy. We're looking at what sessions are running and what time they're running at. We're looking at what outcomes we want for each part of the day. We're thinking about where people will need implementation time versus, coaching time, teaching time. I'm thinking about how to facilitate the right conversations, who to have the right conversations with, who to make the right connections with. I'm thinking about how to make sure people are not just sitting there taking notes, because let's be honest, that's what most people do. They show up to these events, they take notes. That's not what I want. Instead, my day is designed around having my guys take notes, yes, but make decisions, because the notes will not change anything, but the decisions absolutely will. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about, our in-person weekends. And we have them every 90 days. And yes, they are intense. And yes, they are very full on, but they also shortcut years of second guessing. And they also shortcut years of, I'll do it when, insert whenever. They shortcut years of being stuck in your own head. I think we've all been there at one point in time. And, the people flying into Belfast, they're showing you something. They're showing me what commitment looks like now, not 6 months from now. And I want to connect that and our in-person event coming up this weekend with something else that we did last week. Because last week I had 173 people live on an online Zoom training with me. 175 or 73. And the training was on how to replace your corporate salary via property in 2026. Now, as you all know, my vehicle for that was property sourcing, and we've done it very well. Now, I want you to sit with that number for a second. 173. That's 173 people who are hungry, curious. 173 people that are completely and utterly fed up with where they are at with their corporate job. 173 people who are thinking there absolutely has to be more than punching in and punching out on a 9 to 5 or these 2-hour commutes every day. That was 173 people who wanted freedom, who wanted options, who, want to stop living for the weekends. They want to stop feeling like their life is dictated by somebody else's calendar. And they want to build something essentially that belongs to them. I love that training. Why? I loved doing that training last week because I could genuinely feel the energy through the Zoom call. I could feel the desire that these people had to want to make a change, to want to make a difference, to want to have that option. But I could also feel that they were listening. I genuinely felt that. I felt like they were genuinely listening. But, and I guess this is me being honest, online trainings are powerful, but they are they are genuinely just the tip of the iceberg. Yes, it gives you access, it gives you the information, it gives you the roadmap, but the information on its own doesn't actually change your life. And that's really the bridge that I want to build today between these two events. Last week I had 170 plus people who showed up for access. This weekend I've got more than 50 people who are flying in for commitment. And there's a massive difference between the two. Most people want to feel like they are moving, but they don't want to do the things that actually moves the needle. They want the outcome, they want the results, but they don't want the reps. It's a bit like wanting to have the baby without the labour pains. They want the corporate salary replaced, but they don't want the uncomfortable bit in the middle where you actually have to be the person who can replace it, because it requires a bit of structure, a bit of consistency, some decision making, some uncomfortable decision makings. It requires you to follow through on the things that you said that you were going to do. It also requires you to stop waiting until you actually feel ready. You're not ready. You're never going to be ready. But if you want a different life and if you want to do things differently, you have to do things different. And that is what I love about our Belfast weekends, because it's not just a weekend. It is very much a standard. It is very much a declaration. It is very much somebody saying, I am not doing this half-hearted. I am not staying stuck. I want to remind you that most of our guys book flights, book hotels, go to the airport, get on a plane and stay in Belfast for the weekend. Very few people are doing that. It's a huge commitment. So I want to let this really land today, because I think people get confused. The difference between the people who make it and the people who don't isn't intelligence or luck or confidence. It's none of those things. I've said more times than enough, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room to get the best results. Most of the time, the difference is commitment to doing the boring things, commitment to doing the things on repeat, commitment to doing the uncomfortable things, commitment to doing the detailed things. That is where your business is built. So I want to say that again. The detail where your business is built is not motivation, it's not energy, it's not another webinar, it's not another podcast, and you should be listening to these things. But if you're the eternal student for life, it's not going to do you any fucking use. So the moral of today's episode, and I really want this to land with you, is that your next level and your next batch of results and success, and this is important, it's in the details that you keep trying to skip over. The results that you want, the life, the freedom, the flexibility, the options is in the detail that you're currently trying to avoid. That is it. That is the whole thing. If you want to replace your corporate salary, you have to be prepared to do what it takes. Are you willing to build a system? Are you willing to track your actions? Are you willing to speak to agents consistently? Follow up with investors properly? Package deals professionally? Willing to show up when you cannot be bothered? Because trust me, I know what that feels like. The guys I have flying into Belfast over the weekend, they have all of that. And they are not any more special than you. And they have not been handed something that you don't have access to. But they have decided to commit to making this work at a higher level. And so if you take anything from today, let it be this. Stop shopping around for information. Stop consuming content. Stop listening and nodding. And pick one thing this week that actually proves you're serious about making this work. One thing, not 10. I don't need you to reinvent your life. Just pick one thing. And I'll tell you something. The people who replace their corporate salary through property, they don't do it in one good week, by the way. They build reps, they build proof. You can do all that too. So with that in mind, this has been a hectic week. It's also been a pretty powerful week. I am excited for Saturday to see the guys, but it reminded me again that, everything that we're doing is actually built behind the scenes. And so it's the same for you. Do not skip the detail. Raise your standards, and I will speak to you guys in the next episode.